טוב, שלום, everyone, ברוכים הבאים, welcome. Thank you so much for being here tonight. תודה. So I'm Noah. I'm the founder and the CEO of יהודי להיות יהודי, Destined to be a Jew, non-profit supporting converts worldwide. And I'm very, very excited to be here tonight with you and to show you my work. Now, today is a very, very special day because today is Zayin Adar, 7th of Adar, the birthday and the yahrzeit of Moshe Rabenu, alav hashalom. And what could be more symbolic than launching this organization on this day, an organization that works to gather all of the Jewish souls that were with us back then on Mount Sinai and return them back home. Now, another significant stage in the Jewish history was the first Zionist Congress led by Theodore Herzl. And that Congress ultimately led to the Jewish people returning back to our homeland. But the process is not complete yet. And we need to bring everyone back here. I would like to invite the chairman of the World Zionist Organization, Mr. Yaackv Hagoel, to share a few words with us and start this event.
הרב דלוי היקר, גברת נועה עמליה ארזי, מנכ"לית עמותת יהודי להיות יהודי, הרב ארי סילברמן, מר תום פרנץ, הרב טוביה סינגר, חברי היקר רודי רוחמן, מכובדיי כולכם. קהל נכבד, אנו נפגשים כאן הערב, כאן, בבירתנו הנצחית ירושלים. העיר שמחברת זהות, אמונה והמשכיות, כדי להשיק יוזמה שנוגעת בלב ליבו של הסיפור היהודי. יהודי להיות יהודי. ערב ההשקה של העמותה סובב סביב שאלה עמוקה. מי אנחנו? מי מבקש להיות חלק מאיתנו? מאז ראשיתו העם היהודי לא נמדד רק במספרים שלו, אף פעם לא היינו עם גדול, אלא במשמעות שלו. לא רק על פי העבר, אלא על פי בחירה. והגיור לאורך הדורות היה חלק מהסיפור הזה. מורכב, רגיש, אך מהותי. טבח 7 באוקטובר טלטל את כולנו, ביטחונית, מורלית וזהותית. הוא אילץ אותנו לשאול שאלות קשות, על שייכות, על גורל משותף, ועל המשמעות של להיות יהודי. חלק מעם אחד. בעולם שבו האנטישמיות מרימה ראש, תמיד הראש שלה היה למעלה. וכך בתוך הטלטלה הזו התרחש תהליך עמוק. אנשים ברחבי העולם החלו לשאול לא רק מאין באתי, אלא לאן אני שייך. דווקא אחרי השבר, דווקא בתקופה של כאב ואי ודאות, יש מי שבחר ובוחר, ברוך השם, להצטרף לעם היהודי. לא מתוך נוחות, אלא מתוך מחויבות. גם לא מתוך אינטרס, אלא מתוך זהות. זה איננו דבר מובן מאליו. זהו נכס מוסרי, רוחני ולאומי. למדינת ישראל, שהוא הבית של כל העם היהודי, ולעם היהודי כולו. גרי הצדק הם עדות חיה לכך, שהעם היהודי הוא לא רק סיפור, אלא הוא רעיון חי, שממשיך לקבץ אליו אנשים המבקשים משמעות, תורה ושייכות. עלינו לחבק ולקבל את אלו המבקשים להתגייר, בכנות מלאה, להצטרף לעם ישראל ולגורלו, כי הם היו שם יחד איתנו ביום בו היינו לעם. עמותת יהודי להיות יהודי שהקימה גברת נועה ארזי, מבוססת על התנסותה האישית, אותה הפכה לשליחות ציבורית, מתוך כוונה להעצים את חשיבות הגיור והיחס למתגיירים. יוזמה כזו מעניקה למתגיירים לא רק ליווי מקצועי, אלא תחושת שייכות, ומסר ברור שהם רצויים, שהם חלק, שהם באים הביתה. זהו בעיניי מעשה ציוני ממעלה ראשונה. אומר את זה מי שעומד היום בראש התנועה הציונית העולמית. אותה תנועה שהקים בנימין זאב הרצל, כמו שנאמר פה. אותו בנימין זאב הרצל, שכתב היום, לפני 130 שנה, את הספר שאנחנו הולכים על פיו, מדינת היהודים. אותו מורה נבוכים, שעזר לנו לחזור הביתה, לארץ ישראל. אני מברך את נועה ואת השותפים לדרך, את הרבנים ואנשי המקצוע, ואת כל מי שבוחר להיות חלק מהעשייה החשובה הזו. מדינת ישראל, חבריי, והעולם היהודי כולו, זקוקים היום ליוזמות כאלה. יוזמות שמחברות בין זהות לאמונה, בין ההלכה לאנושיות, בין עבר לעתיד. מי שמבקש להצטרף לעם היהודי דווקא בתקופה כזו איננו נטל, אלא שותף אמיתי, אח שלנו הוא. הוא עדות חיה לכך שדרכנו עודנה מהירה. הנגשת הגיור על פי ההלכה מחד, וגישה שלא על פי החומרה מאידך, תסייע בהפיכת הליך הגיור לידידותי ונגיש יותר. יעמיק את הרחב של העם היהודי ויסייע לאיחוד השורות, כחלק מהמחויבות שלנו לשמירה על עם אחד. על הגיוס לצה"ל ועל האחיזה באדמת מולדתנו. מי ייתן ונדע לפתוח שערים באחריות, ברגישות ובאמונה, ונזכור שכל גר צדק שמצטרף לעם ישראל מחזק את הנצח של עם ישראל, את הנצח של כולנו. תודה רבה לכולם.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hagoel. Now, before anything else, I would like to start with thanks. First and foremost, thank you, Hashem, for granting me this sacred mission to serve the Jewish people. Now, the list of people who have helped me along the way is endless, but since we don't have all night, so I'll thank a few key people. So I want to thank my conversion teacher, Rabbi Aaron Moshkovitz, who saw something in me that I even didn't see in myself. To our board, Rabbi Yonatan Megidish, Rabbi Yonatan Goldschmidt, Itai Katsir, Nir Weissman, Odelia Arazi, Mordechai Eskin. I could not have done this without you. To Anya, our education coordinator, to my sponsors, Menachem Korenwitz, and the team organization, especially Israel, who had been my mentor for the past few months. And I want to thank my Ima and Ava. All of this couldn't happen without you, so thank you. Yeah, let's give them a round of applause. They deserve it, for sure. And last but not least, my incredible global community who is watching it from overseas. All of this is because of you and for you. And Bezrat Hashem, we are going to bring all of you back home. So, destined to be a Jew, Yehudi Liot Yehudi. Why did I choose this name? Because my destiny was to be a Jew. Now, when I tell people that I converted to Judaism, so they often say, wow, kol hakavod, mazel tov, kol hakavod for choosing to join us. But the truth is that I don't feel like I chose it. I feel that it was chosen for me, and it's something that I had to follow. And thank God I did it. Now, it's such a privilege to be chosen to convert to Judaism because I believe that converts have a significant role in this world. Yeah, we have a light show at the Tower of David, so we will manage. I believe in us. More, I'll raise my voice so everyone can hear me. So I believe that the converts have a really significant role in this world because they are the bridge between the non-Jewish world and the Jewish world. Now, I won't share my full conversion story tonight because you can find it online. I speak about it 24/7. But I will share the end of the conversion process because the end of it is really just the beginning of the Jewish journey. So after I finished my conversion process, I felt empty. I felt unclear. So what I did is that I took myself to 2 weeks into the desert to a place called Timna Park. Now, what I didn't know back then is that Timna is mentioned in the Torah and in a very famous Talmudic story where she came to Abraham and Yitzchak asking to convert, and they refused her. Now, because she was rejected, she decided marrying Eliphaz, and later on, she gave birth to Amalek, the biggest enemy of the Jewish people. Now, there is a very powerful lesson here. We must be very careful who we accept, for sure, but we must be even more careful who we reject. At this point, thank you. At this point, I would like to invite Rabbi Dr. Ari Silvermann, that works for the organization team that helps exactly those converts that are being rejected by us, the Israeli authorities, to share a little bit about their work.
Shomim? Okay, so firstly, thank you to Noah Razi for hosting this wonderful event and obviously founding the organization, dignitaries, Rabbanim. We're about to read Parashat Tetzaveh, and we encounter in the beginning of the parasha two important kelim, two important vessels of the Mikdash. The one being the menorah, and the other being the Bigdei Kehuna. If we follow the Netziv's Perush, Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin, we see that the menorah represents Am Yisrael, represents really the Torah that guides us, and the Bigdei Kehuna is something unique for the Kohanim. It's what the Kohanim have to wear in order to be Meshartim B'Kodesh, in order to be servants for Hashem. And there is a unique purity to the Kohanim. They're separate, they're sanctified, they're above. They wear the begadim, their garments, as a way of separating themselves and being different. But this sanctity, as unique and as special and as holy as it is also limited. We also learn about other kinds of clothing in the Megillah, which we're going to read in a couple of weeks. The clothing that Achashverosh put on of the Bigdei Kehuna. Achashverosh puts on the garments of the Kohanim, and so you see that as much as the garments represent what is holy and unique and elevated and special, because they are external in some way, they also represent something that can be brought down, something that can be disheveled. However, if we compare the garments to the menorah which represents Torah, which represents all of Klal Yisrael, the menorah and the light from the menorah, the Torah which is given over to all of Klal Yisrael to learn and to learn out from and to interpret and to expand, is something that can never be really taken away. And in the Megillah, there is no way to remove Torah from the people. In fact, the Megillah is the place where the people take on themselves Torah by their own free will. And it reminds me, if we're talking right about Gior, of a little bit of a joke, which you'll bear with me, and it illustrates the points. In the Spanish Inquisition, a Jew, Moshe, was told by the priest, you have to convert. He converted to Christianity. And the priest said, whatever you do on Friday night, you're not allowed to eat meat. You're not allowed to eat meat. You're not allowed to eat chicken. Okay. So the Friday night comes around, and the priest is going around, and he goes into the Moshe's house. And what's Moshe eating on the table? Chicken. And he says, what are you doing? I told you the one thing you're not allowed to do because you're a Jew is on Friday night eat chicken. And so Moshe said, it's not a problem. I sprinkled water and I said, now you're a fish. And now he's a fish, right? And so what that joke represents, though, is that for Judaism, Giur and reconnecting to your roots, reconnecting to Am Yisrael, is something much deeper than just sprinkling water. It's something which brings to fruition something which is deep inside the Gerim. That spark of Torah, which is represented by the menorah, is hidden deep inside the hearts of Klal Yisrael, the hearts of the Gerim, and it's not just stum. It's not just something little. And that is what has provided our people with the light throughout the exile, and has provided our people with the spiritual industry to give us the life that we lead today in Eretz Yisrael. And what is unique about Gerim specifically is that it teaches us this very message, that it's not about the grand gestures of the begadim. There's a place for the Kohanim, obviously, and the begadim and the clothes, but it's about that little spark which cannot be extinguished, that these Gerim represent, this coming together of Klal Yisrael. And we at Itim are committed to helping these Gerim in any way possible through our call center and our Rakazim, our coordinators that help people navigate the Rabbanut and the Israeli bureaucracy. But there's another element that I want to talk about, particularly in the context of this wonderful organization. Another element connected to clothes as well, because the theme of clothing is at the center of the Megillah that we're about to read on Purim. We know, for instance, that Esther, when she has to go to the king, gets dressed up in Bigdei Malchut to go in. She has to wear that. You see, if you live in Persia, you have to wear Bigdei Malchut, and you take a chance if you don't. And the person who took that chance was Mordechai. At the time of danger for Klal Yisrael, when all of the Jews were in danger, he refused to put on different clothing. He wore the garments of mourning, and he wore the garments that perhaps was even a threat to him. But why is that? Because Mordechai, for him, it was important to be part of Klal Yisrael, to be with Klal Yisrael, to identify with them entirely. And part of what I see in this organization is exactly that. An organization which is willing to wear whatever clothes are necessary, to take off all the trappings that surround us, and to go down and to be with the Gerim, and to teach them, and to be with them, because they are essentially one of us. They are part of Klal Yisrael. And a basic foundation of any leader of Klal Yisrael is to always be with the weakest of society, always be with Klal Yisrael wherever they are. And so I wish the best to Noah, Arazi, and the staff on this endeavor, which teaches us and brings home that basic idea that Torah, in any form, in the hidden form, is what guides us, has guided us. And that the Gerim who are coming back to Klal Yisrael bring with them that spark of Torah. And obviously, as well, organizations like this one are there to provide them that way back and to be there with them wherever and however they need. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rabbi Silvermann. So, remember my desert trip. So after my desert trip, I decided to move from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Now, I often say that I made Aliyah from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. That's really how it feels. Thank you. So I was so determined to move to Tel Aviv that I even moved without having here an apartment. And I lived in a hostel for a couple of weeks until I found a place on a street called Root Street, very much symbolic, of course. And in the meantime, I worked as a concierge at the King David Hotel. Now, October 7 broke out, and we were put on Chalat, unpaid leave, and I haven't been back since. Now, one day into the war, I received a message from an Israeli convert who had seen a post of mine that I shared about my conversion process, and she asked to consult with me. So we spoke for like an hour on the phone, and when I hung up the phone, I said to myself, that's it. I'm going to help converts to Judaism. So, so I started sharing my personal conversion story online, and I just started to receive hundreds of questions from people from across the globe asking me, how can I convert to Judaism? How can I find a Jewish community? How can I contact a rabbi? How can I join a Jewish community? And many of them said that the tragedy of October 7th aroused this yearning to convert to Judaism and to join the forces of light against forces of darkness. So what I started to do is that I opened a small business called New Choose New Jews, where I provided consultation meetings where we went over the stages of conversion process, how to plan a budget in advance, the different recognition between the Ministry of Interior and the Rabbinate, options to convert in Israel and the different visas. And it's really grew and grew, thank God. Now, I also opened a WhatsApp community that is divided to different countries where converts connect in between themselves. And also we created an Ask the Rabbi group led by Rabbi Yonatan Goldschmidt here. And I created also a forum of me with many rabbis from across the world where I consult with them. So let's take a quick look at the demographics. Like, who are those people that want to join us? Very interesting. Before that's just a little bit about the small business. So far we have 19 different groups, in 10 different languages. I don't even understand what they're saying unless I translate it. We have over 600 converts in those groups, over 15,000 followers. I received personally over 1,000 messages from people from all over the world seeking Judaism. And over 50 started conversion thanks to the consultation meetings. Now, not out of, it's a matter of the fact all of this was a small business by myself. So just imagine the huge potential it has if I'd have a team with me. So the demographics. So I sent it to my WhatsApp community, and we got 138 answers. So let's see what we are talking about. So you could see that approximately half are women and half are men. Yeah, this is it's very fascinating to see, because usually you think that mostly are female, but almost half are male. Mostly are single. Ages, you can see here up, do you have children? So mostly do not have children. Ages, so you can see that mostly are young people. Stayed in the conversion process, so almost 50% of them are considering conversion, meaning they reach out to me to get some information, and the other half are starting the process or already undergoing a little bit after conversion. Religion before conversion, this is also very fascinating to see. 60% of them are Christians. We have also some Muslims. Many of them have no status, and many others, for example, Hindus, Buddhists, Chinese, and many more. Continent, mostly from Europe and Latin America, and the rest are North America, Asia, Australia, and Africa. Okay, this is truly fantastic to see, because just think about it. Only 138 people answered, and yet we have 36 different countries. Just think about if I will send it to all of the 15,000 followers, we basically reach out every corner of the world. So it's just, if this is not מקבצי נדחי Israel, I don't know what is. It's really, really fascinating. Do you have Jewish origins? Okay, another amazing statistic, about 80% of them have no Jewish background. 50% not that they know of, 30% that they suspect, but they're unsure. So how can you explain this statistic? It's absolutely amazing. Now, why do they want to convert? So the main reason usually that I get from the messages that I receive and the one-on-one consultations is that they can't really explain it in words. They just have this internal pull towards Judaism, and it's really it's an unconditional love. Now, of course, they have also many other reasons, like disbelief in my old religion, connection to biblical stories, event of October 7, Jewish partner, and so on. But the internal pull is something that repeats itself again and again and again. What are your difficulties during the process? Baruch Hashem, we have many difficulties during the process, especially outside of Israel. For example, no Jewish community around, lack of information, financial costs, integrating into Jewish community, daily practice, bureaucracy, rejection from family, rejection from community, rejection from a partner, and of course, many other more. But the non-Jewish community, so I get a lot of messages from people who live like thousands of kilometers outside of Jewish community, and they need to take all of their things just to move all of their lives into a Jewish community. I want the conversion to be recognized by the Rabbinic, the Israeli Ministry of Interior, the Jewish community to which I belong, and it doesn't matter to me. So you see that the vast majority wanted to be recognized by all authorities, which is usually not the case. Israel, are you ready for this? Because this is really, really amazing. What is your relationship to Zionism? The vast majority support Zionism, and the rest don't support it because they don't know enough about it. Would you want to make Aliyah? So you can see that 30% very much, 12 would love to, but they just can't afford it, and 27% more are considering it. To what extent do you feel connected to Israel? So another amazing statistic, do you feel, you can see their connection to Israel. How strongly do you feel the conversion process is connected to Israel? So again, you see that there is a connection between converting to Judaism and joining Israel and coming here to the land of Israel. How willing would you be to serve in the IDF or have your children serve? So if I take 4 and 5, over 50% of them would want them or their children to serve at the IDF. So just think about it. We have mostly young people, single, that have this a deep connection to Israel, that are willing to serve the state of Israel. Now, what do you think about the program fighting anti-Semitism and connecting converts to Israel? So if you weren't convinced that Israel has an interest or should have an interest to support and help those people, maybe now you will be.
Olá pessoal, me chamo Marcelo, tenho 26 anos, sou advogado, moro em São Paulo, no Brasil. Eu estou no processo de conversão ao judaísmo, tenho essa conexão com o judaísmo já de muitos anos, desde que eu já era adolescente, comecei a estudar e praticar judaísmo, e isso se tornou realmente uma missão da minha vida, até que eu consegui me mudar para São Paulo, ter orientação de um rabino, ir nas sinagogas, e Bezrat Hashem em breve vou estar concluindo meu processo de maneira ortodoxa.
Hola, soy Flor, de Argentina. Mi conexión con el judaísmo empezó hace ya varios años. Mi mamá me empezó a compartir videos de Cábala y viendo varios de esos videos de algunos rabinos que son ortodoxos cabalistas, me obsesioné con el judaísmo, con sus tradiciones, su religión, la comida, todo. Automáticamente empecé a buscar mi comunidad y empecé el proceso de conversión.
Yaackv, ben Daniel, 24 yaşındayım, İstanbul, Türkiye'de yaşıyorum. Ermeni bir ailede doğup büyüdüm. Kendimi Yahudi halkının bir parçası olarak görüyorum aslında daha çok.
Hallo, mein Name ist Anja Stanicek. Ich lebe in Hamburg, in Deutschland. Ich habe meine Konversion 2022 beendet und bin seit 2023 im Dezember Gemeindemitglied der jüdischen Gemeinde Hamburg.
Shalom, sono Davide d'Italia. Parlando della mia connessione alla Yahadut, sicuramente si dovrebbe parlare del giorno della mia nascita, perché da sempre ho avuto una fortissima connessione, fortissima e profonda. Sono cresciuto con le storie del Tanakh che mi hanno sempre di più legato in maniera inseparabile a Israel, soprattutto Yetziat Mitzrayim.
Israel é a casa de todos os judeus do mundo. Cada judeu ao redor do mundo ele é um potencial cidadão israelense. Então a defesa do Estado de Israel ela cumpre um papel de defesa de todos os judeus ao redor do mundo. E espero que Bezrat Hashem em breve eu possa estar visitando o país. Já passei infelizmente por alguma situação de antissemitismo aqui em São Paulo, pessoa falando mal dos judeus perto de mim de kippah no mercado. Respondi a essa pessoa, reportei para a segurança do supermercado. E sou entusiasta desse processo, desse projeto do Ministério da Diáspora. Acredito que terá um papel fundamental para disseminar boas informações corretas a respeito do Estado de Israel, e sem dúvida também poderá estar aí orientando, servindo de orientação, de guia para as pessoas que já se converteram ou que eventualmente querem se converter de uma maneira correta, bem orientada também, com as informações devidas. Sigo à disposição.
La conexión con el Estado de Israel es algo que no lo puedo explicar. siempre sentí mucho amor y desde el 7 de octubre que soy una ferviente sionista defensora del Estado de Israel. Creo que es muy importante que haya este tipo de proyectos que conecten a conversos de todo el mundo o personas que estén en proceso de conversión, ya que es un proceso largo, solitario y que inevitablemente implica muchos cambios en la rutina, en la vida, en el entorno y en los vínculos. Y bueno, en el proceso uno va dejando gente atrás porque cambia y es importante poder formar nuevos vínculos, aunque sean virtuales, pero no sentirse tan sola.
İsrail'e karşı inanılmaz bir sevgim var. Gerçekten çok merak edip gidip görmek istediğim ve hatta yaşamak istediğim bir ülke. Yaşadığım ülkede antisemitizm deneyimi birebir yaşamadım çünkü kimliğimi gizli tutuyorum. Ama çevremden ve televizyondan çokça kez antisemitik cümleler duydum ve özellikle 7 Ekim'den sonra İstanbul'un bazı özellikle eski Yahudi yerleşimlerinin olduğu yerlerde şu anda biraz daha muhafazakar insanların yaşadığı yerlerde Hamas'a yönelik daha sempatizan grafitiler görmek mümkün olabiliyor. Bu tür projenin İsrail ve Yahudi seçmiş kişiler için önemi bence gerçekten çok önemli bir proje bu. Özellikle daha öncesinde hiç ailesinde Yahudi geçmişi olmayan insanları İsrail ve Yahudi toplumuyla birleştirmesi açısından çok önemli buluyorum ben. Toda.
Und der Auslöser war für mich tatsächlich der 7. Oktober, auch tatsächlich dann Gemeindemitglied zu werden, weil ich gemerkt habe, dass diese Zeit nicht alleine durchgestanden werden kann und ich Gemeinschaft gesucht habe. Ich habe mit manchen aus meiner Konversionsgruppe gesprochen und die haben sich völlig alleine gefühlt, trotz Gemeindemitgliedschaft. Die wussten gar nicht, wo hinten und vorne ist. Und ich glaube, diese Community hier kann helfen und Bildung und auch einfach Unterstützung aus Israel.
Per quanto riguarda episodi di antisemitismo in Italia, non si contano. A iniziare dalla scuola, dove tutti guardano i film ogni anno della Shoah, Schindler List e così via dicendo, tanto per non imparare nulla, perché il sentimento non è cambiato da allora completamente, anzi forse ora sta pure ritornando agli apici di quello che abbiamo visto sfortunatamente in quei giorni della Shoah, perché i ragazzi, i professori fanno sempre battute molto antisemite, molto pesanti, soprattutto dopo il 7 di ottobre non è più gestibile la situazione. Per quanto riguarda invece il progetto che oggi andiamo a presentare, sicuramente porterà grandi benefici sia al Medinat Israel che a noi Gerim, perché c'è un motivo se Medinat Israel è tra i primi stati al mondo per quanto concerne la felicità, tra gli stati più felici al mondo. E quello è perché le persone amano essere chi sono, ovvero ebrei, amano fare parte di Am Israel, amano lo Stato di Israele. E sicuramente mettere dentro persone che amano questo Stato, vivono, bruciano, ardono profondamente per questo Stato e nutrono profonda connessione con la sua storia, con la sua lingua, penso che possa solamente fare del bene sia a noi che a voi. Quindi aspetto vostre buone notizie.
Yeah, they deserve it. These people are some of the greatest ambassadors for the Jewish people and the land of Israel, and we need to help them. We need them with us. I believe that this should be one of Israel's priorities. Now, I would like to invite now someone who himself went through a very complex conversion process here in Israel as a German citizen, Tom Franz.
Thank you so much for having me.
Did you bring us anything to eat?
Yeah, I thought about it.
Next time then, yeah. So let's start with the most important question. What was more difficult? Studying law, winning MasterChef, or converting to Judaism?
Actually, the conversion was the hardest. I never compared it to MasterChef, but I compared it many times to studying law, which is a very hard.
It's similar.
Studying in Germany, but the conversion was
the hardest.
much harder.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's much more real. It's not just studying, it's like affects your whole life.
Yeah. So Tom, can you please start by sharing us a little bit about your background? What led you to Judaism, about your family, and so on?
What led me to Judaism is, it's just meeting Israelis in Germany during a school exchange, coming to Israel, falling in love with the country after having fallen in love with the people before, and later on having this, I think it was called the internal pull. I never looked for it. It was just like happening to me that I was attracted to something which looking backwards, I would call maybe would it call it Yiddishkeit, I don't know how to say it. I have no knowledge about it. Like you say, when you Naseh v'nishma, I started doing things that I didn't know. I knew I want to convert before I knew anything. So it's really in that way. And
did you feel like it was a choice for you?
I'm looking backwards. This is a very deep question. It's very it touches the core of all these things. I thought I have the choice. I thought I'm sort of volunteering to some certain degree. But looking back, I understood more and more that I did not have really this choice. This is I think you said it. Some people, they tell you, Kol hakavod that you did this, you have a lot of courage, and wow, how could you do such things? And
why did you do it to yourself?
And this also, especially to men.
Yeah.
But it was, when I look back, I was 30 when I decided it, and I was already quite advanced in life. I was already a lawyer, and I had my life. But this feeling of that I have to become Jewish became stronger already for a couple of years. It was then already 7 years or something that it followed me. It was not like I was looking for it. It was there. It's also a story that I told many times and would take the whole evening to tell the whole story. But I think it was a sort of surrender. I surrendered. There was a moment of surrender when I understood I'm afraid of continuing my life, becoming the age that I'm now. We're talking about 22 years ago. I thought I don't want to come 50 and still have that longing and have my life there with wife, children, career, and everything, obligations and whatever. And I cannot do the change anymore. I know already for a couple of years that I have to do it, and I will not have done it. And I didn't want to be that man.
Can you please tell us a little bit more about your past life, you could say, before conversion? How did it look like? Your family, your household that you grew up in?
Well, you could say a typical German in a way. No connection to Israel, no connection to Judaism. I grew up in a little town, suburb of Cologne. Cologne is, I think, the oldest Jewish community in Europe, or somehow known. But there was no Jewish community. Not a night town. You could find everywhere, places where the Jewish quarter was or something like this. I grew up in a Catholic family that was not practicing a lot, religion. There were no talks about faith or some things, but we had Christmas and some holidays, and sometimes went to church. Of course, as a German, I grew up with the German history, which everyone knows. It's the Second World War. It's the Shoah. Is I could say, for everyone of my generation, that I was the third generation. My parents, like the parents of most of my friends, were born at the end of the Second World War. But all our grandparents, I can say it for myself, I can say it for everybody, because you realize that we are the third generation. All our grandparents were alive when the Second World War happened, and they had all their role somewhere in that war, or did something, or didn't do something. I don't know what is worse, but about my grandparents, I can say they weren't heroes, not for the Nazis, but also not for the Jewish people, for anybody. I don't think they did something really justice that I could be proud of. On the other side, I don't have to be ashamed of what they did. They did what, I don't know, what many others did. One grandfather was also a soldier. I mean, he fought in Russia. He was very young. He was a simple soldier. He got himself shot in the head. So that's how he survived, by getting shot in the head. I mean, you think then this is the bad luck, but you know, after all, it was hashgacha pratit. Otherwise, my mother wouldn't have been born, and I wouldn't be there. But it's not easy growing up as a German with that history. You know, it's not fun realizing who your people are.
And what were your main challenges throughout the conversion process, like before and after, and during and after?
I did my national service in Israel instead of the German army.
Yeah. So can you please explain a little bit about?
But I returned from that with the feeling that I started to believe. I started to believe in Hashem, which is not. Maybe there's something in common with the Christian Trinity, but it was not what I felt. And it got stronger, and I had to do something about it. And what can you do about it? This is a good question, because, I mean, that was the time, it's just started internet, so it's very hard to get information. Really hard to get information. Still it's hard to get information.
Yeah, definitely.
Before internet, or at the beginning of the internet, was even worse. I mean, what could you get? I mean, I once went to the rabbi of my town, of Cologne then, where I studied, and I told him this, and I cannot exactly tell what he said literally, but the message was sort of, you can't do it here. There's no infrastructure. It's a little community, and anyway, you don't need to do it. You know, you don't have to become a Jew. And I don't know, the conversation continued in that way that he told me, he asked me about Israel. I told him I have a connection to Israel, and he said, if you can, do it in Israel. I mean, that's a very nice way also to say no, sort of, you know. I mean, tell a German law student to go to Israel, convert there. I mean, how realistic is that? Well, I did it. I mean, I finished studying, but then I left, and I came to Israel as a tourist. And
on a tourist visa.
This is, tourist visa. I mean, as a tourist visa. I mean, I came for the purpose to stay for good. I came to convert. I came to change my life and everything, but I couldn't. I mean, everyone told me you can't. I mean, that I couldn't. That you have a visa for 3 months. On that visa, you can travel, you can work, you can convert. So actually, it's another big no. No, it's not a rabbi that has to tell you this. You understand it on your own. I mean, but I felt so strong that I have to do it, that I simply did what I felt that I have to do, what I can find in the Bible. You know, I start the Bible. I believe in Hashem. I want to eat kosher. I want to keep Shabbat. Within the first month, I went to a hospital and did the circumcision, just on my own, just because I thought this is how to prove that I'm serious. It's something you can't take back. You know, you passed the point of no return already. And it was unbelievable. I did that. I woke up. I mean, it was on Harama. I woke up and I felt it reached Hashem קיבל את. ואני הייתי בסוג של, אפשר להגיד, I was in a kind of spiritual honeymoon. But I couldn't do the conversion. I just continued doing what I thought I have to do. I went to synagogue. I started to keep Shabbat as much as I knew what is kosher. I ate kosher and all the things, and simply
just
continued.
all by yourself.
All on my own.
Yeah. No rabbi, no community.
Actually, I didn't have the experience of which I was what's called a rabbi that did my conversion. I mean, there was a rabbi of the synagogue, but he wasn't my teacher. He was a teacher in a rabbinate, but I wouldn't call him a rabbi. I don't even remember his name. And so I did it all on my own, and I continued doing it on my own. There were nice people in the community, in the synagogue, where I went. But it was like, tell you where I went? To a Moroccan synagogue. I went the whole conversion to a Moroccan synagogue. Everything in Hebrew, which I didn't understand
Maybe
in the beginning.
Why you became a chef.
Yes, right. So there was a lot of difficulties. I did to learn Hebrew, to learn Judaism, that I can't work, that I can't convert, and all the things, and just continued. And it took 2.5 years till I, could dip in the mikveh and came out as a Jew.
But practically, how did you do it in Israel on a tourist visa for 2 years?
Tell you what, no, you can't stay for 2
Yeah.
years on a tourist visa.
That's
but
what I'm wondering.
Somehow there were always, I don't know exactly how, this is a wonderful spiritual experience. All this journey is a lot about faith and hashgacha pratit. Which hashgacha pratit you heard in English? You say private providence.
Yeah.
So when I had always the experience that I could see a certain distance, till then I can make it. I can go till then or till there. It's well like seldom longer a distance than 2 or 3 months. Many times it was less. And then there was a wall which I thought, okay, I don't know how to continue that. This is the end. But whenever I reached there, it moved or it opened. Wow. So it always continued. I never was thrown out of the country, though I never could work. Okay, that's terrible. For a long time as a German lawyer, without work permit, what can you do?
So what did you do?
I don't know. I think things for the university. I studied and everything. There was something, but it worked. It was a beautiful spiritual experience. But it was. I wouldn't recommend to do it. It's not for everybody.
No, it's not. Yeah. What did you feel that was missing for you throughout the process? The most.
I had to. You can. It's always said, that you have to be rejected.
3 times.
3 times. In my case, there were many factors, many persons that did that. So altogether, it was many more times than 3. And it's the system. It's from that one says there's no infrastructure, then there's the Ministry of the Inner that says you don't get a visa. The rabbinate says you can't convert because you don't have a visa, and this is not even spiritual. And then you finally get a visa for converting, and then you cannot work. So that's everything a no, and no one said it explicitly, but de facto, it's completely. Not normal people wouldn't do it. You must be a little bit cuckoo for. So what I missed, of course, there was also this somehow links between all those, that they would, talk with each other. I don't know, and know what the other does, and make it possible in a way and support. I just can tell you, I came from outside. I came as a tourist in my conversion class in the Rabbinate in Tel Aviv. There were many other converts that were or Israeli or their spouses. And I'm not sure how many of them kept living as Jews after the conversion. But they let them do it without any problem. And I was really serious, and it made me all the problems of the world. But it didn't matter. So I don't know exactly what would be good, but it would be good if you have a guidance which makes sense and support. Yes, I know someone to turn to, I tell you, but it has to be, also on the other side, it has to be somehow real. Like I said, there are many people that pass conversions, and I know from personal experience, it was not a true conversion, although it was accepted, and they have it orthodox and everything. And so I don't know exactly what is the right solution, but there's a lot of space for improvement.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Tell me about it. When was the first time that you cooked a kosher dish?
And let's say like this, I don't know exactly when, kosher is, it's not so easy. Till today, there's not really, I don't cook kosher enough for everybody, although I cook very kosher. So when you cook really kosher, when it's not kosher for everybody, is it already kosher? I don't know. But on the other side, I can just say that maybe it's not really cooking kosher. It was like starting to eat kosher, which is like a long process. And I think that's something there's people I knew only like 15 years later that people are told that they want to, return, l'chzor b'tshuva. You tell them, okay, start eating that and that things, That I did and already, I think, 30 years ago, 10 years before the conversion, before I wanted to convert. I stopped eating pork. I stopped eating meat and milk products together and shrimps and all this stuff. Sometimes for a couple of months. Sometimes I asked myself what I'm doing. Sometimes I wasn't white and I couldn't explain why. But I had this longing for eating this because it was somehow right for me. But I couldn't keep it. It wouldn't have mattered to eat it because it was not kosher anyway, what I ate. But I left out many things that I knew then that is not kosher. So now it's, I'm eating kosher.
Kol hakavod. Tom, thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you. And good luck.
And you are a real ambassador for Israel and the Jewish people. You are. Thank you so much. For those of you who thought that conversion in Israel is hard, so conversion outside in Israel is even harder, and in some places it barely exists. For example, in places like South America, Orthodox conversions are almost non-existent. And this creates a very problematic situation, because what happens is that missionary groups take advantage of that position, and instead of people converting to Judaism, they are converting away from it to Christianity. I'd like to invite Rabbi Tovia Singer to share a little bit about this phenomenon and tell us what should be done to maybe solve this problem.
Wow. I confess I'm very shocked by what I've witnessed and observed. The graph that you saw here tonight, people from around the world who are being called to the people of Israel, an inner calling, can be explained because I have a Bible. Isaiah chapter 43, verse 4, 5, and 6. God is going to bring you home. He's going to find you. He's going to bring you from the ends of the world. My sons from afar and my daughters from the furthest most islands, I will bring you home. And you, Noah, you are walking prophecy. We had a prophet that lived here in Jerusalem, who lived right where we are right now. His name was Isaiah. And he told us all about you and all those that you're helping. He preached in this city, in Isaiah 56, that God is going to find those who are the descendants of the strangers, B'nai Nechor, Isaiah called them. They will cling to the Jewish people and demand to be a Jew. Scripture tells us that they will keep Shabbos. Why are they called B'nai Nechor? Such an unusual term. Because they descendants of the strangers. They had no idea who they are. But I am going to bring you home. So I'm standing among you with miracles. Isaiah continues to say that those who don't even know who they are completely lost. I will bring you home, Isaiah 56, verse 8. Look it up. This holy man preached in this city right where we are today. And we are observing prophecy that is unfolding. I must share this with you. The work that I do is completely the opposite of everything you're observing here tonight. My work is going into the darkest places, the church, finding Jews who are lost there, and bring them back to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. My work takes me into the church. And I therefore encounter many, many Christians, probably more than any rabbi on this planet. And when you meet the people who convert to Christianity, l'havdil, if you ask them their story, their testimony of why they became a Christian, the story usually goes something like this. I was high. I was on drugs. I was laying on the streets. I was drunk out of my mind. I was a sinner. And I found Jesus. That's how the testimonial goes. And there are many people in this room sitting here tonight listening to my voice that know exactly what I'm speaking about. Conversely, if you speak to the people who are converting to the Jewish faith, so many of you here tonight, and ask the question, why did you convert? Why would you have done this? Why did you join the nation of Israel? You are very unlikely to hear, boys and girls, gather around. I want to tell you my story. I was stoned. I was high. I was drunk. I was on the streets, and I found Moses. Very unlikely. We're living in a remarkable time of a restoration of our nation and messianic prophecies unfolding where we are right now. I couldn't help but feel a lot of pain tonight. Why would I feel pain? Noah is doing such an extraordinary work of helping, facilitating messianic prophecy of the restoration of our people to come home. As it turns out, I served as the rabbi of the largest Muslim country in the world. In fact, I made aliyah from Indonesia. I have never discussed this publicly. I will tonight. There are more Muslims in Indonesia than there are Arabs in the world. I never experienced anti-Semitism in Indonesia. Quite the contrary. They treated me with the utmost respect. If I even needed to go to the airport, a police convoy would escort my car. I never heard a word of hatred against the Jews there. And I traveled between the so many islands that were there, helping Jews who were in the church in Indonesia to come back to the God of Israel. More than 500 did tshuva. But listen very carefully, please. I need to share something with you. Many, many Muslims came to my lectures. It's not important why, but what I do is very popular in the Islamic world because Muslims need to know how to defend their religion from Christians that are trying to convert them. So therefore they look to my work to know how to defend their faith, a monotheism, against Christian missionaries. Do you understand this? So I was treated like people would come over to me and just kiss my hand when I walked through the streets of Jakarta. However, there was one thing I knew. I can't believe I'm going to say this now. There was one thing I knew as every rabbi in every Islamic country knows. You don't dare even consider the possibility of converting a Muslim to Judaism. I can't even imagine what would happen. I can't even imagine it. So it was very well known to rabbis serving in Islamic countries that you were very careful. That's one line that you just do not cross. Many Muslims would come to my synagogue, would come to my classes, and they enjoyed it thoroughly. But they knew never to even ask me a word, even those who are descendants of Jews. And it's biglal zeh, it is because of this. I want to tell you the truth, and if whatever the consequences are, so shall it be, but you must know the truth. It is for this reason that in Islamic countries, Syria, as an example, was conquered by Islamic armies in the 7th century, as was Eretz Israel. In 636, and one of the most important battles in Islamic history occurred, and the Byzantine Empire was defeated, and Muslims came to Eretz Israel, and we know the rest of the story. So rabbis in Syria, as an example, had very good reason if they wanted to get along well and they wanted to protect the Jewish community, that they would never even dare, consider the petition to convert to Judaism, because that would be a disaster. And that would be the same case in other Islamic countries where rabbis serve. You wouldn't even, okay, that's what's really going on. I want to, for a moment, I do not want to speak to you. I want to speak to the rabbis in South America right now. So you're here, and you're listening into a conversation that I had not planned to deliver. Nothing I'm saying was in my mind, and now this is a complete change. And therefore, I want to speak to the rabbis of Brazil. So many Jews are there. So many people in Brazil are Jewish and don't know it. Jews fled to Brazil. The oldest synagogue in all the Americas is in Brazil. Jews fled Europe to come to South America to escape the church. This is the worst kept secret in the world. And I want to speak to the rabbis in Argentina. I want to speak to the rabbis of Brazil, the largest Roman Catholic country in the world. Largest. You are not Syria. You are not Morocco. You are not Iran. The reasons why rabbis were terrified of converting anyone in Islamic countries is understandable. But you are not in an Islamic country. You are not in a land that's Dara al-Islam, that Muslims once controlled. You are in a land that the Islamic world considers the land of war. And therefore, I encourage you to reconsider and to welcome home our people who are begging to join the nation of Israel, their nation, to fulfill the prophecies of Isaiah. May we be zeicher to witness the coming of the true Messiah quickly in our time. Thank you, Noah. Thank all of you.
Thank you, Rabbi Singer. And now I would like to invite someone who dedicates his life to raising awareness to Jewish communities that we didn't know even existed. The producer of the movie We Were Never Lost, Rudy Rochman.
Kol hakavod Tovia for telling the rabbis of the world what they need to hear. Big thank you to Noah for being able to organize this event. Thank you. May you have a lot of atzlacha in bringing back the souls of Israel back to Am Yisrael, and may we all be able to see this in its fruition. I'm going to start by sharing my story, because Noah, you shared your story of what made you return to you, and I think we all have our own stories. Now, I was born in France, but all of my grandparents were born in different countries. On my mom's side of the family, they were born in Morocco and in Algeria. In 1948, there was a massacre of the Jewish community in Oujda as a retaliation to the creation of Israel, which led my family eventually to flee to France to survive. On my father's side of the family, they were born in Poland and Belgium, and during that time, they survived the Holocaust and also fled to different places, eventually reaching France as kids and surviving there. So both of my parents were first generation born in France. I was second generation. When I was 3, my family decided to move to Israel. Then at 5, we moved to Miami. And growing up, I kept realizing in each of these different places, there's a different culture and outlook when it comes to being a Jew. Particularly in Miami, especially before COVID, it was a place that no one identifies as American. You're Argentinian, Venezuelan, Colombian, Haitian, Jamaican, everything else but American. Even if you were first generation born American, you were still identifying what your parents were. Now, growing up in this society, I was always labeled the French kid. Even though I had left there when I was 3, my parents were first generation. It's not really where we come from. Because my parents had thick French accents, I was the French kid. And whenever I'd visit my family in France, all of a sudden, I'm the American cousin. And I'm realizing that in one place, I'm American, in one place, I'm French. I'm going to a Jewish day school, and they're telling me, oh, your dad's Ashkenazi, your mom's Sephardi, but your dad's Ashkenazi, so you have to go to the Ashkenazi minyan. And I'd have to explain to them, listen, when my dad married my mom, he converted to Sephardi, so Baruch Hashem, I was raised fully Sephardi, and you don't get to tell me who I am. And I realized growing up that apparently who I am is dependent in other people's mind by who is asking me the question or where the question is being asked. And from there, I wanted to find my own story, what I need to respond to the world. And something happened to me as a 7-year-old that I share often that changed my life completely. I took a trip to London with my mom and my younger brother. We got onto the red tour bus that does the tour of London. And as we got onto the bus, my mother happened to be wearing a shirt written in Hebrew. The shirt said Emet, truth. We got onto the bus, and the bus driver looks at my mom's shirt and says, excuse me, is that written in Jewish? My mom looks at the shirt and says, no, I'm sorry, this is written in Hebrew, but it's the language of the Jewish people, if that's what you're asking. He says, oh, so you guys are Jews? She's like, yeah, we're Jews, what's the problem? He says, get off my bus, I don't want any Jews. My mom, being a very strong woman, said, I don't know who you think you are, we're not getting off this bus. And the man who ended up being a neo-Nazi gets up, grabs my mom, and throws her off the bus. Now, in this moment, as a 7-year-old, everything inside of me was burning to do something, but I had nothing to do. No one taught me how to deal with this emotionally, intellectually, physically, even how to understand this ideologically. Why would it be that this person sees a Jew and feels the need to react and project all of the traumas that are hidden within him? But this moment did 2 things for me. The first thing that it did for me is it made me promise that the next time I would see any form of injustice, especially against my collective, I would have to be strong, not just physically and mentally and emotionally and psychologically, but also understanding where these things are coming from and being a part of a generation that works to change that. And the second thing that this moment did for me is it made me realize who I was. I already knew, but I did not know how to express it. And this moment made everything clear. Because I realized that it didn't matter where I was born, grew up, lived in, traveled to, reside in, what passport I have, where my parents were born, or my grandparents were born. What mattered was that I was a Jew. So I started asking myself deeper questions. What does it mean to be a Jew? Now, growing up in a Jewish community, I was always told that Judaism is our religion. Now, what we mean by saying that to the world is we mean that this is our culture, our history, our traditions, our values, our spirituality, our Torah, our land, our history, everything combined into one. But the word religion is defined very differently in the English language than how the Jewish people are misdefining it. The word religion is defined as a belief system in a God, deity, book, or prophet. And so if one does not believe in the God, deity, book, or prophet, by the very definition, they are not a part of a religion. Which is why a Christian that rejects Jesus is not a Christian. A Muslim that rejects Muhammad is not a Muslim. A Buddhist that rejects the philosophies of Buddha is not a Buddhist. Yet a Jew that rejects Torah and Hashem, even though a fundamental part of who we are, they're still a Jew. And in order for someone to become a Christian, they accept Jesus, and like that they're a Christian. Someone to become a Muslim, they accept Muhammad in the Quran, and like that they're a Muslim. For someone to become a Jew, you don't just say, I accept Torah and Moshe. You have to go through years of a process of adopting an identity, a history, a culture, a value system, a tradition, the experiences of being at the face of anti-Semitism in the world, with the purpose of the Jewish people. You have to go through years of a process of joining a civilization. And that's when I realized that Judaism is not a religion. Maybe internally by how we mean it, because we're defining it as our culture, our traditions, our spirituality, but by how the world defines it, the world sees a religion as a wandering ideology that crosses over borders and nations, that one is a part of it if in the moment they believe in it or not. And Judaism is not a wandering ideology that crosses over borders and nations, that one is a part of it if they believe in it or not. It is an ancient family, an ancient civilization, that if one wants to rejoin the Jewish people, because we believe a convert is a Jewish soul born into a non-Jewish body, they have to go through a serious process to rejoin their family. And so then I started asking myself deeper questions. Why are we even called Jews? In the Torah, we're never called Jews. We're Am Yisrael, Bnei Yisrael, or Ivrim. And I'm realizing, growing up, I'm from Shevet Levi from both sides of my family. My mother's side of the family are Kohanim, so a sub-tribe of Levi. My dad's side of the family is a Levi. I'm not even from the tribe of Judah. So why am I even considered Jew? So I realized that after we split the kingdoms, Yehuda, Binyamin, and Chetzi Levi were living on one side, and the rest of the 9.5 tribes were living on the other. And the majority of the Jewish world today descend from those 2.5 tribes. And the name of the kingdom then, 2,000 years ago, happened to be called Yehuda. And because we came from Yehuda, we became known as Yehudim. So then I'm asking myself, if the only reason I'm called a Jew is because the name of the land 2,000 years ago was called Yehuda, but if the name of the land today is called Israel, that makes me Israeli. Now, being Israeli doesn't mean that you eat bamba and bisli and listen to Shlomo Artzi and Omer Adam. These are more pop cultural things that have developed with time. Being an Israeli means that you're the living, breathing continuation of an ancient civilization. That is a synonym for being a Hebrew, an Israelite, a Jew. These are all different names talking about the same people. Naturally, from there, if I'm a member of Israel, I realize that when we're asked as Jews, where are we from? We need to be honest with the world. They're not asking us, when they ask us where we're from, to say where we were born, grew up, lived in, traveled to. They're asking us, where do you belong? And if us as Jews cannot clearly say that we are from Israel, then how are we supposed to expect the rest of the world to understand that the Jewish people are from Israel? If we say that we're from Morocco, we're from Yemen, we're from Poland, we're from Belgium, we're from France, we're from all these other places, then to them it's, okay, that's where you're from, then go back there. We need to be clear to the world that, yes, we had a diasporic temporary experience by force in other places, which definitely played a role in the development of how we've become, but this is not where we're from, and even while living there, this is not where we were part of. After I graduated high school, naturally, every Israeli has to do the army. Why should I be any different? And I came enlisted as a lone soldier, as a volunteer, and served as a sniper in the paratroopers, which I still serve till this day, and I've been in all the wars in the past 10 years. But besides the physical wars that our country has been facing, there's also a lot of ideological wars happening around the world. And my time after my army service was spent going to universities, starting at UCLA, then transferring to Columbia, combating anti-Semitism, standing up for the Jewish people. But something that I noticed and realized, that the biggest problem we had was actually ourselves. I remember when I started university at UCLA before transferring, I realized that there were movements on college campuses seeking to destroy the image of the Jewish people. And they were riding on the suffering of other minorities, blacks, women, Hispanics, Native Americans, and finding the source of struggle and suffering of these communities and attaching them to what Israel's doing to Palestinians, or even Israel's responsible for their suffering. And so I started to ask myself, okay, if that's what they're doing, what are we doing? Why is the only action the Jewish community doing is an event once in a blue moon in the Jewish safe space in our little shtetl of Chabad or Hillel, something that makes us feel safe? And we would talk about very shallow things like Israel created the cherry tomatoes and ways and drip irrigation and things that make westernized Jews feel proud about Israel to ourselves, have a little bit of hummus and Israel flag and pita and some Omer Adam music, and we'd feel good about ourselves. And I went to the Jewish leaders at the time, heads of organizations and federations and rabbis and presidents of communities, and I said, "Allo, what are we doing?" I was raised hearing never again. To me, it didn't mean that just because we say these words, that somehow these sounds out of our vocal cords came out, and because we said so, then that means they're not going to do it again. Never again meant a generational commitment to make sure that it doesn't happen again. I don't want to hear about black rights from KKK members. I don't want to hear about women rights from misogynists. So why are the only people talking about Israel and the Jewish people those that are against our own people? And I started hearing something that reminded me of a trip that I had done right out of high school before the army, a trip called March to the Living, where you get to go to Poland and see some of the places and the horrors that happened during the Holocaust. Now, I need to go to those places to learn what happened to the majority of the family on my father's side, which almost to their entirety were exterminated. But something that I took from this trip that I still carry today was something that the organizers did. On our long bus rides, the organizers gave us a packet of letters that were written by different Jewish leaders in the decade leading to the Holocaust. It wasn't overnight that Jews are a part of society and the next day were being killed. Anti-Semitism got worse and worse and worse. And what were the Jewish leaders saying to each other? Don't worry about it. It'll go away. If you do something, it'll get worse. You even had instances of rabbis and heads of communities saying, no, we need to support financially the Nazi movement because anyways they're going to get into power. And if they're financially dependent on us, then they won't actually do what they said that they would do. Fast forward, 2013, I get out of the army, realized that anti-Semitism is growing on college campuses, which represent the future political and intellectual class of the next generation. And what did the heads of the organizations and federations and presidents of communities say? Don't worry about it. It'll go away. If you do something, it'll get worse. No, it's people like you, Rudy, who go out there and debate, and you're bringing them attention, so you're part of the problem. And this is the moment that I realized that the problem that we have is not how strong the anti-Israel movement is. It is how weak or non-existent our own movement is. So I started to ask myself now deeper questions. After transferring to Columbia, because it was listed as the #1 most anti-Semitic university in North America, and going there and fighting for Israel and the Jewish people, I was asking myself a very deep question. Why? Why are we always blamed for all problems? The far right thinks we're the left. The far left thinks we're the right. The capitalist blames us for communism. The communist blames us for capitalism. The neo-Nazis, the white supremacists, were enemy #1. The black supremacists, the Farrakhan's, were enemy #1. Literally the one thing that every extreme group on this planet agrees on. There's only one thing, and that the Jew is the source of the problem. How they are the source of the problem, they'll actually disagree on. But that they are the source of the problem, they're all on the same page. Now, I grew up asking my community, my teachers, my rabbis, why? Why are we always hated? Why are we always blamed for all issues? And I kept hearing 3 very shallow answers. The first answer I would hear is jealousy. Because we tend to be successful, that's why people hate us. Well, I'm sorry. There were many times in Eastern Europe and in other Middle Eastern experiences where we were very poor, and they still hated us. How about in America? The 3 most successful minority groups that are recent immigrants are Nigerians, Koreans, and Indians. And I don't see any boycotts against Nigerians. I don't see any encampments on college campuses against Koreans. I don't see any movements or protests about any of these groups. How about Singapore? That is 50-something years old. One of the most successful countries in the world, younger than Israel. Is anyone boycotting and going against Singapore? So I'm sorry, this is not success. The second excuse we often give is, well, we other ourselves. We have our own Jewish day schools, our own hospitals, our own cemeteries, and because we create this separation, that's why people hate us. Well, so do the Amish, and so do Christians, and so do Armenians, and so do many other groups that create their separation, and no one is going to these communities and blaming them for all problems. Let me just give metrics. In America, you have 5.4 million Jews. New York is one of those largest communities of Jews. If you take the entire hate crimes against all communities, over 60% of total hate crimes is targeted specifically on the Jewish people. Try justifying that. And the third excuse I would finally hear is because there's this potential dual loyalty. Because we're first loyal to a collective Jewish people or to the state of Israel, that's why societies reject us. Now, growing up in Miami, every time there was FIFA World Cup in soccer, or the Olympics, I could see literally every single group cheering for Venezuela and for Argentina and for Haiti and for Jamaica and for every other country but America. And no one was going to them say, I knew Venezuelans, I knew you Colombians, I knew you Brazilians, that you're actually having dual loyalty with another people. And so I realized that all these were excuses. And we were actually asking the wrong question. The question is not, what did we do that caused anti-Semitism? The real question is, what didn't we do? And in order to answer that question, we need to remember as a collective, what are we supposed to do? We're taught to be good Jews, that's very important, to put tefillin, to do the brachot, to do the chagim, all extremely important. If I took a heart and each cell was taught to do what it needs to be done individually, but it wasn't taught what it needs to be done collectively, the heart would not function. We were taught individually as Jews what to do, but did we forget that we are a collective? We are one unit. We have a purpose, one that we chose to do. What is the mission of Am Yisrael? Our mission to the rest of the world, it's tikkun olam and or lagoim, to heal the world wherever there's hatred and jealousy and materialism and famine and war, and to be a light to the nations. It's not liot or lanu shagoim istaklu elenu v'retzu liot kamonu. It's liot or lagoim. It's not be a light to yourself. You're in your own little private section with light and everyone else is living in darkness, and you just want people to look through a window and see you living in light and want to be like you. No, we chose to be the people that go outside, that turn on the light so that people can achieve their greatest potential. The reason for why Hashem created them. So I started thinking of analogy. And I said, you know what? Let's say the world is one body, and every nation has its own function. Hashem created every single person, every single nation, every single species for a reason. What in the human body heals the world, so heals the body, and becomes a light to the nations, empowering the nations with something that empowers the rest of the body? The only thing in the human body that does that is the immune system. The Jewish people chose to be the world's immune system. We signed a contract on Har Sinai. We choose to take on this responsibility to elevate humanity to this reality called Mashiach. With that comes great blessings, great abilities that we would be given. With that comes a responsibility to elevate the rest of humanity. And if you do not do this, you divide amongst yourselves, you assimilate and pretend to be like everyone else, then the nations will blame you for all problems that exist. Because anti-Semitism is a rejection to the Jewish people failing their purpose. When the immune system does not work, the body becomes sick. It is not the immune system that created the diseases, but it was the immune system's responsibility to prevent it. The reason why all these different extreme groups are coming to the conclusion that we are the problem is because subconsciously they know we are supposed to be the solution. Now, yes, we need to fight anti-Semitism, but fighting anti-Semitism is not the solution to anti-Semitism. I've been in several wars in the past few years. We know that if someone gets shot in the leg, they hit an artery, you have to do a tourniquet. You have to stop the bleeding. Fighting anti-Semitism is like doing a tourniquet. You need to do it now, because if not, they're going to kill you. But it's not the solution. You still need to do the surgery. You still need to remove the shrapnel. You still need to remove the bullets. We still, as a nation, need to do our purpose. Now, I think the thing that unites the Jewish people is two things. Either an enemy and an experience of anti-Semitism, but that's a very short-term unity, or a common mission and vision. And unfortunately, since we came back to Zion, since we came back to Jerusalem, we did not have a discussion internally as a community, as a generation, of what is the next chapter of Jewish history. And of course, the purpose of Israel was not just to create a state like everyone else with some Jewish Magen Davids and that's enough. Its point is to be a vessel of light into this world. But if I had a glass vase, and I shattered that vase into a bunch of pieces, and I brought back some pieces, and I have the glue, which is the purpose that unites all these pieces, but I'm still missing many of them. I'm sorry, if I pour water, there's many holes that the water is going to flow out. Now, we brought back Ashkenazim, we brought back Sephardim, we brought back Bukharians, we brought back the Beta Israel, Ethiopians, we brought back the Bnei Menashe, but the majority of Am Yisrael has yet to return back home. While I was a student at Columbia, I was working at the Chabad house one day, and I'm on my laptop, and at one point there's a woman who comes to the Chabad rabbi, and she says, "Rabbi, how are you?" I just came back from my honeymoon trip in Africa, and I visited the Jewish communities of Uganda and Tanzania. And I'm working on my laptop, and I turn around, what is she talking about? What, Israelis have created this community after the army. What are these expats, businessmen of Jews? Like, what do you mean? I've heard of Ethiopian Jews. I've heard of Ashkenazi in South Africa. I've never heard of Jews in Uganda and Tanzania. What are you talking about? And she pulls out her phone and shows me videos of Jews wearing tefillin, saying the Shema, speaking in Hebrew, wanting to join the army, wanting to go to yeshiva. And I was shocked. How could it be that we had so many other family members out there that have yet to return to Am Yisrael? And then I started to think about it. What if they had come home first? What if they had established a strong and healthy country, economy, military, and we were still suffering? And the Holocaust had never ended. And after a generation or two, we lost a lot of practices. We weren't able to keep up. We barely survived. Wouldn't I expect them to come and help us? To give us back the resources that are missing? To look favorably onto us, especially if they're reaching out? To save our lives? Of course I would. And I realized that it's our responsibility, the fact that we came back home first, that we preserved the scepter of Torah, that it is our responsibility to help them come back to Am Yisrael. Now today, the 16 million Jews, we are primarily 2.5 tribes, Yehuda, Binyamin, and Chetzi Levi. Of course, if 6 million hadn't perished, we'd be much more. Of course, if we didn't assimilate to the levels that we are, we'd be much more. Of course, if 1 million Jews during the Inquisition weren't killed or forcibly converted, we'd be much more. But we are 16 million, 2.5 tribes. The 9.5 other tribes today, their descendants are about 500 million. Now, most of them were forcibly converted to Christianity and Islam, and I would say about 20% of them still identify as part of the family of Israel. And almost half of them want to make Aliyah. We're talking about over 100 million people that are still identifying as members of Am Yisrael, from Africa to Asia to South America, that are not yet considered a part of the Jewish people that want to return home. So we created a documentary series to tell their stories. Season 1 is in Africa, 2 is in Asia, 3 is in South America. But we also dedicate one episode in each of these seasons that also talks about emerging Jewish communities. There is a simultaneous phenomenon next to the fact that the tribes of Israel are coming back to Israel, that there are emerging Jewish communities that are choosing to become a part of the Jewish people. And we know in the Gemara, it says several things about this phenomenon. But it also says that one of the reasons for why the tribes of Israel were displaced is to come back with converts. So we understand as we are approaching the times of Mashiach and the tribes of Israel reuniting to Am Yisrael, that there will be many emerging communities or individuals coming back to Am Yisrael. And it's time that we realize that they are a part of us. We cannot be ourselves without them. If I had a car on the outside, it might have a body of a car, it looks like a car. But if you don't have all the pieces in the car, it's not going to be able to drive to your destination. On the outside, we might look like the civilization of Israel. But on the inside, we're missing so many pieces to be able to be brought together in order to fulfill what we need to do in this world. Now, to finish off, I want to present a 2.5-minute little teaser on the project that we have that will share the stories, particularly of the Jews in Africa. Over the past 5 years, we've been to Nigeria, Uganda, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Madagascar, Ethiopia, and Ivory Coast. We plan to visit the many other communities in Asia and South America. But this is something that doesn't matter where your political stance is, where your religious level is. In our generation, there are many things that we will accomplish. And one of them is bringing back all the pieces of the puzzle of the fullest light that Am Yisrael needs to be. Toda rabba.
Rudy, thank you so much for being such an inspiration. And I think I have a clue what your next movie is going to be about. Rudy. Before I close, once we finish here, we will go all up together to the observation deck at the Tower of David. More precisely, it's the Tower of Patzael, to end the evening with the breathtaking view of Jerusalem. אני אגיד את זה גם בעברית. ברגע שאנחנו מסיימים פה, אנחנו נעלה כולנו יחד לתצפית מגדל דוד, יותר נכון, תצפית מגדל פצאל, כדי לסיים את הערב בנוף עוצר הנשימה של ירושלים. מי שלא יכול או לא רוצה לעלות את כל המדרגות, יש גם מעלית, לא לדאוג, there is an elevator if you can't or don't want to climb it up. So, I don't think conversion to Judaism should be easy. Challenges shape us, they build us, they make converts stronger and more prepared to face the challenges of the Jewish world. And Baruch Hashem, we have many challenges. The problem is that conversion is barely exist in some places, and if it does exist, so it just becomes a process of suffering, and I don't think that's how it should be. Now, bringing every Jewish soul back, that's my life mission. And I can't do it alone. So any support, whether collaborative, professional, financial, will help me turn this vision into reality and bring them all back home. Now, I hope that this event will be maybe a little bit like the first Zionist Congress, and we will be able to bring all the remainings back to our homeland. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here and supporting. Toda Rabba. Toda.
Kim me yo elom o khshoni